Okay. Do I need it for anything?
This section.
Okay.
When you refer to it, I can cue you.
Yeah, you might have to cue me.
Oh, that's good.
All right. Hello. I will now call the meeting to order. My name is Paul Misburis, and I am the co-chair of the board of directors of the company. In such capacity, I shall act as chairman of the meeting, and Kevin Spall, secretary of the company, shall act as secretary of the meeting. The first item of business will be the appointment of a scrutineer to report on the shareholders present in person and the number of shares represented in person or by proxy at the meeting or any adjournment thereof.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following resolution. Be it resolved that Mr. Eric Augustin of TSX Trust Company be appointed scrutineer to report on the shareholders present in person, the number of shares represented in person by proxy at this meeting and any adjournment hereof, and to compute the votes of any poll taken at this meeting and any adjournment thereof, and to report thereon to the chairman.
Chairman, I second the motion.
All those in favor of the resolution, please so signify by raising your hand. Contrary, if any? I declare the resolution carried. The notice calling this meeting has been delivered to all of the shareholders and directors of the company and to the company's auditor in accordance with the notice and access procedures of the Canadian Securities Administrators, and there has been filed with me by the Secretary proof of service of the proxy-related materials mailed to shareholders in connection with the meeting. I direct that a copy of such proof of service be annexed to the minutes of this meeting as a schedule. I will now ask someone to move and someone to second a resolution dispensing with the reading of the notice calling this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following resolution. Be it resolved that the reading of the notice of this meeting be dispensed with.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
All those in favor of the resolution, please so signify by raising your hand. Contrary, if any? I declare the resolution carried. I now wish to call upon the scrutineer to present his report.
Mr. Chairman, we have three holders present in person or by proxy representing 2,752,266 shares. 183 management proxies received representing 32,474,639 shares, for a total represented at the meeting of 35,226,905 shares, or 31.96% of the issued outstanding.
Thank you. The scrutineer's report shows a quorum to be present, and I therefore declare the meeting to be regularly constituted. I direct that the report of the scrutineer be annexed to the minutes of this meeting as a schedule. Voting on all matters to be considered at this meeting will be held by a show of hands unless a shareholder demands a ballot. I now present to the meeting the statement of financial position and related financial statements of the company as at September 30th, 2017, together with the report thereon of the auditors of the company to the shareholders. Copies of such documents have been publicly filed, and it is not proposed to read them to the meeting. Unless anyone objects, I will now ask that someone move and someone second a resolution that the auditor's report on the financial statements of the company for the year ended September 30th, 2017 be taken as read.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following resolution. Be it resolved that the auditor's report on the financial statements of the company for the year ended December 30, 2017 be taken as read.
Chairman, I second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution, please so signify by raising your hand. Contrary, if any? I declare the resolution carried. It is now in order to proceed with the election of 4 directors to hold office for the ensuing year or until their successors are elected or appointed. Management has nominated and intends to vote proxies received by management and for which authority to vote has been given to appoint Ian Clifford, Kevin Spall, Michael McCallishan, and Paul Masburis as directors. As there have been no additional nominations in compliance with the company's advance notice bylaw, I would ask someone to move and someone to second an ordinary resolution approving the election of the 4 persons nominated as directors.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following resolution. Be it resolved that the 4 persons nominated are hereby elected as directors of the company to hold office until the next annual meeting of shareholders or until their successors are elected or appointed.
Chairman, I second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution, please so signify by raising your hand. Contrary, if any? I declare that Ian Clifford, Kevin Spall, Michael McCallishan, and Paul Masburis have been duly elected as directors of the company to hold office until the next annual meeting of shareholders or until their successors are elected or appointed. The next item of business is the appointment of auditors of the company and the authorization of the directors to fix the remuneration of such auditors. Management intends to vote proxies received by management and for which authority to vote on the appointment of auditors has been given to appoint RSM Canada LLP, Chartered Professional Accountants. I will now ask someone to move and someone to second a resolution to appoint RSM Canada LLP, Chartered Professional Accountants, as auditors for the current year and authorizing the directors to fix their remuneration.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following resolution. Be it resolved that RSM Canada LLP Chartered Professional Accountants are hereby appointed auditors of the company to hold office until the next annual meeting of shareholders of such remuneration as may be fixed by the directors, and the directors are hereby authorized to fix their remuneration.
Chairman, I second the resolution.
All those in favor, please so signify by raising your hand. Contrary, if any? I declare that RSM Canada LLP Chartered Professional Accountants have been duly appointed auditors of the company to hold office until the next annual meeting of shareholders and that the directors have been duly authorized to fix their remuneration. The next item of business is to consider and, if thought fit, pass an ordinary resolution of independent shareholders ratifying and confirming an amended and restated shareholder rights plan for the company to bring it into conformity with recent changes to Canadian takeover bid laws and address outstanding gaps in those laws. The amended and restated rights plan is not being adopted in response to any pending or threatened takeover bid for the company. To be effective, the resolution must be approved by at least a majority of the votes cast by shareholders other than shareholders who are not independent shareholders as defined in the plan. To the knowledge of the company, no votes will be excluded from voting on the resolution. A summary of the terms of the amended and restated rights plan is contained in the Management Information Circular under the heading Special Matters to be voted on, Amendment and Reconfirmation of Shareholder Rights Plan, and a full copy of the plan is attached at Schedule B to the Information Circular. Are there any questions concerning this matter?
Just a brief question, what is the duration of this?
I believe it's for another 3 years. Was that correct, Lonnie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would ask someone to move and someone to second a resolution ratifying and confirming the amended and restated shareholder rights plan.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following resolution. Be it resolved as an ordinary resolution of independent shareholders that the resolution of the company set out at page 25 of the Management Information Circular relating to the ratification and confirmation of the amended and restated shareholder rights plan of the company be approved.
Chairman, I second the resolution.
All those in favor, please so signify by raising your hand. Contrary, if any? I therefore declare the resolution carried. Does anyone have any further business they would like considered during the formal part of this meeting? If there is no further business, may I have a motion to terminate the formal part of the meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the meeting be terminated.
Chairman, I second the motion.
All those in favor of the motion, please so signify by raising your hand. Contrary, if any? I declare the meeting terminated. Thank you. So now I will welcome Ian Clifford, CEO, to the podium, and he will take us through a corporate presentation and update. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paul. Welcome, everybody, and welcome everybody online. I hope that everyone is able to log in right now. That'd be great. Great to have you here, and also our greetings to everybody in Austin, the rest of our team, and hopefully people are logging in through our new website, which was launched last night. Look for pretty constant updates on that portal into the company. We're very proud of the new interface. We're proud of the messaging and the clarity of message that's presented in that interface. And especially thank you to Jessica Thompson and the team at Spark PR in San Francisco who put that very, very, very professional website together for us over the last few weeks. Let me see. Our lawyer will now read the disclaimer. That's very good. Thank you, Lonnie. That was quick. Our mission statement, and many of you are familiar with this, but it remains our ongoing objective and goal to be the leader in solid-state energy storage. And I want to clarify, just as we get into this presentation, the importance of understanding what solid-state really means in our context, because you're reading a lot and hearing a lot about solid-state energy storage as it relates to lithium-ion technologies and other electrochemical technologies. Our primary distinction, is that we are truly an electrostatic device. We are a true solid-state storage device, which means that we don't degrade with use. We don't have any physical degradation of our technology as it's utilized. Whereas the solid-state you hear about now in terms of electrochemical technology is still a chemical reaction. It's in a solid-state environment, but the devices still do wear out. They're not permanent energy storage as our technology is positioned. And that's an important distinction to make, because we're hearing more and more about solid-state offerings. And we want you as our shareholders to understand how distinct our technology is in that arena of information that's out there now. Our overview, for those of you who are new to the company, eStore was set up in Austin about 15 years ago, developing a new composition-modified barium titanate dielectric material. That's really the heart and soul of our technology, if you will. It's what all of our work is based on. That original science was, of course, developed by Dick Weir and his partner Carl Nelson at the time. And we have worked incredibly hard over the last 4 years specifically to really gain as much understanding and control of that material and work it into the type of results that we are getting today, which we'll talk about in detail, of course, as we go through the presentation. A couple of highlights, of course, is the fact that this is a permanent device. We have done million cycle testing, which many of you will be aware of, which is essentially permanence in terms of the technology, and that's very, very important as we start to look at the different markets that we address and potentially disrupt, because a lot of the materials that we're replacing out there are materials that wear out and have very high replacement costs. So that's a very significant differentiator for us. At a glance, this is our stock price recent now, $32 million market cap that you're aware of. And our cash position at the end of the year was $1 million. Subsequent to that, we closed the first round of a $2 million financing, adding an additional $1.2 million to our balance sheet. And we'll be closing the balance of that financing in the near future. So that should be happening in the next over the next couple of weeks. So our cash position going into our next series of activity is strong, and we feel very, very positive about our ability to raise money now and certainly in the future as information and disclosure comes out. Our management, of course, on the corporate side, myself as CEO and Kevin Spall as our Chief Financial Officer, bring a lot of obviously very relevant experience to the work that we're doing today. And we'll, on the new website, you'll see our entire team illustrated for the first time. So you can all, those of you who haven't met them, who didn't meet them in Austin last year, there are a couple of people here today that I'll introduce you to. And then, of course, the whole team in Austin. And as always, I open an invitation for any of you to come, any of our shareholders to come down to visit. We've got a great facility down there, and we're happy to share our work and our progress if you're in the Austin area. And we do, as I said, we do invite you to come down. In terms of other management in Austin, we have Dick Weir as our Chief Technology Officer, and of course Brian Kelly, who will be speaking to you today as well, as our Production Manager. So a great team, incredible depth and capability as it relates to the work that we're doing. And of course, I'll talk about that, and Brian will add to that in terms of the work that we've been heavily focused on over the last 12 months. Our board, you met Paul. Many of you have met Mike as well. Again, great experience as it relates to the operations of the company as a public entity. I don't think many of our shareholders appreciate the overhead that's involved in operating a public company. And Mike and Paul share the co-chair position and provide a tremendous amount of support for the day-to-day activities of the company as well. So we've got a very hands-on board who are providing guidance and insight on a I want to say daily basis, but it's at least a weekly basis. We're very active and extremely integrated as a team. Excuse me. Our strategy. The value proposition of our technology, many of you will appreciate all of these fits that the company and the technology bring to the marketplace. We have very significant differentiating performance of our technology, and again, we'll talk about that in a moment. And very important that you as shareholders understand the significance of where we are today with the technology. I know that over the years there's been obviously a lot of looking towards what's the ultimate potential for what we're doing, and certainly we've talked over the years of replacing all electrochemical batteries and disrupting the entire world. And of course, that's been things that have been discussed over the years. We have some amazing technology today. It addresses multi-billion-dollar markets, and there's a lot of direct application of what we're doing today as well. So we want our shareholders to really understand on the most direct basis possible what markets we are addressing and how significant they are. We will be, coming out of this meeting, a big focus of our disclosure is going to be talking about specific market segments that we feel that we have direct disruption in. And these reports are going to be presented in a way that all of our shareholders will understand, very, very clearly laid out, very direct comparisons with existing markets and technologies, so that you can see how your investment in eStore is directly related to specific market opportunities. So more on that later. We have a great IP protection on the technology. We've been very, very studious in terms of ensuring that that our assets are very, very carefully protected and adequately protected around the world. So the portfolio is in good shape. We've got a very low cost and very environmentally sound technology, and we'll talk about that, of course, as we go through the presentation. These are enormous markets that we're addressing today, multi-billion-dollar markets, and we'll get into the detail, but want to leave the message with our shareholders that these are the targets in the coming weeks and months, and we want you to understand what those are very expressly. And of course, we've got a great team. We've got an amazing group of people. The team in Austin, who many of you met last year at our AGM, are world-class, certainly leading scientists and engineers in the space, and providing tremendous value and support on a daily basis. A very, very active group of people. The product performance, we're very proud of the work that we've done over the last 12 months, addressing really each of these aspects of the technology. I'm going to ask Brian to join me shortly to go through the phases of disclosure that we've put forward over the last 12 months. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about Brian for those of you who don't know him. Brian's been involved as an interested party and shareholder of the company for many years. Very, very active in the community, discussing the technology and postulating as to its potential and so on. A very active voice and a very, very positive and, I'll say, very even-keeled representative of the technology historically. Most importantly, Brian comes from a 20-year career at NASA, where he was responsible for guidance systems and pointing space shuttles and space stations within fractions of degrees to ensure that the astronauts left and entered the atmosphere safely. Incredible responsibility, ran 30, 40 member teams, an consummate, detail-oriented professional. And when I finally met Brian in the context of starting to work for us about, I guess, 18 months ago now, I was so impressed with his ability to, very, very clearly and quickly see the issues and guide the team to solving those issues. And he's been an incredible asset to the company. And I just wanted to, on behalf of the company, thank him for his incredible work over the last 18 months. We couldn't be where we are today without Brian's participation. And I just wanted to let all of you know how important he has been to our process. So I just wanted all of us to give a thank you to Brian for his help. So I'll let, with that slightly simple little introduction, I'll let you now try to speak. So here we go.
How are you all? Yes, I'm a little embarrassed if I'm blushing. That's what, So yeah, we've been doing a lot in the last 12 months. The first thing I'm going to go over is the testing that happened in March of last year. We did the Phase 5 testing where we did environmental performance, and we showed the cycle testing as well, the million cycle testing. We showed a huge increase in time constants over our Phase 4 testing, and this was all with the epoxy product. So it's an epoxy product with, again, the same powder. I want to make that clear. We're using the same dielectric powder that we synthesize, and that is our main product. And then we are proceeding down several paths as we try and optimize the value that's in that powder. And so we're trying to optimize the value, show potential licensees what kind of value we can bring, how we can beat the current products on that market, and why they should license with us. And to do that, we have to make devices that can show off the attributes. So this was in the epoxy phase, which was a part of our polymer program. And we, said we had we also started the first part of the ceramic program here, as well as the million cycle test. So you got a little two here. This is the ceramic program, started with the K of 16,500 volts, and that was on the 5 millimeter sample, so that wasn't a particularly high volts per micron, but it did show before we'd only released K at 1 volt. So the fact that 500 volts was starting on our ceramic product, and to do that we had to really densify the product, and that's what we've been doing over the last 12 months. And in the million cycle test, we showed that it doesn't age, as Ian said. It's a permanent device. You'll look at cycles, and million cycles with no degradation. Matter of fact, the insulation resistance actually increased after the million cycle test. So normally, the insulation resistance is what fails over time. So it's distinctive for our technology. In phase 6, then we kind of showed off the work we were doing. We were silent for a long time. We're trying to get as much done as we could. And phase 6 we released in January, and it talks about a new polymer. We got our polymer scientist in, Dr. Abhi Paul, Abhijit Paul, call him Abhi Paul, started in January, and by this time he decided we were going to go into a polymer route as well as a ceramic route. Abhi had a lot of great ideas right off the bat, and we decided to pick the ones that looked like the shortest route to get good data, and we tried several of them, several of his formulations, and the one that we liked the best, or the one that had the best performance, was what we tested in December. And of course, we had to take a while to release because of December you test, and third party you got to get the reports back, and it takes time. And I think everyone appreciates the complexities in third party testing, scheduling their schedule, getting the reports back, making sure the reports are accurate. But in this case, the epoxy was replaced with a different polymer. The coating we were using for the epoxy was replaced with a different material, and just those two selections, not only did they increase the capacitance by 35 times, they also reduced the cost of the product of material cost by a factor of 10. So that's a good effort on that side. And then we also tested it, showed it was thermally stable. That's the other thing. So the polymer at up to 95 volts, up to 95 C, and down into I forget how low we went, but it tested it, showed it's a thermally stable product. And then again, the increased energy density, increased capacitance is going to show you that we have a smaller footprint for the same amount of space. I mean, same amount of capacitance as we had before. And then in phase 7 testing in February, we disclosed really the mechanism, and really one of the big pushes for this 12 months, or I'll say the time we were silent, was the first time we were trying to recreate, if you will, or define the aspects of the ceramic technology. When you put the powder in a polymer, it tends to linearize, and you don't see the true results of the powder. So the only way to really see the true results of the powder, to see what the true high K was, to see what its base is to actually get centered, high density parts of the powder itself. And to do that, we do mix it with glass. We do mix it with various glasses. We did all kinds of sintering with various glasses. And again, you're seeing some of the better of our products. You'll see in the phase 7 we had two different. Between phase 7 and phase 8, we had two different combinations of glass and ceramic, and we tried many combinations and got various performance. And we can hit several niche markets with those by varying the sintering temperature and the glass additives. So we've learned a lot, even though we're only showing you some of it. We've learned a lot in our stable of. You'll see later. We did like 344 samples. That's 344 sintered samples. That's a lot of pressing. That's a lot of experiments, and that's a lot of data we have now on variability and how we can get different performance out of different mixtures. The glass layer, but the main thing by getting to a glass ceramic mixture, and I want to say that these are between 85 and 96% ceramic, and then the rest glass, low K glass. I say low K because they're less than 10 usually of a glass, and so we put them together, and we wound up getting a K of over 30,000 at 1 volt. Or excuse me, at low voltage, and when you get about 1 volt per micron, it was still over 10,000, and we had still over right about 2,000 at 5 volts per micron. And this is world-beating stuff. If you look, I'll mention that there's a Samsung patent for, these are called, because of the way this particular high capacitance product drops off, it's called a Y5V capacitor. That's a thermal characteristic. And so you're going to compete in the world of Y5V dielectrics. And you can say that's about a $5 billion market right now just for Y5V dielectrics worldwide. And Samsung patented a Wi-Fi-V in 2015 with 14,500 K. So, and of course they have the same slope. The Wi-Fi-V is describing the temperature range and the drop off with temperature. So we're over double that of their, and so that is a huge reduction in cost because you get less material, and reduction in size, footprint on the board or in whatever device it's in. It's a relaxer dielectric. You saw that. That talks more about the mechanism of the functionality and why that's better than a ferroelectric capacitor. Relaxer dielectrics. It's a huge interest right now. It's very academically hot. You can search. There's tons of papers done in the last year, 2 years. Relaxer dielectric, and one of the reasons I'm loving working here, I love the team, I love the work, and one of those things is I always love a challenge to be right on that cutting edge. And if you look up relaxer dielectrics, you'll find tons of scholarly papers, and they'll all tell you no one knows how it works. They've been known for 40 years. No one still understands the mechanisms behind it. And when you're working in a field where no one understands what's going on, that's fruitful for both production but it does make it a challenge to be production, because if no one knows what's going on, it's very hard to know what next step to take. You have to do more of a variation on abilities. We're probing a black box with sticks. Someone else used that term last night, and I liked it, to find out what's inside of there. So, not only do these things have really high high K, but they also have high insulation resistance. So they can hold the energy for a long time and take a very high voltage. So altogether, the CMBT glass layers are a well-balanced, high-performance, low-cost, and non-toxic option. And again, I'm kind of repeating myself, but I want to try and get extra details out. Not repeating myself, but if you've read the papers, I know you've read all this, but I want to get all those details out to you. And then phase 8, we were disclosing that this is the same powder, different glass mix, centered at a different temperature, and now we have an X5U capacitor, which is what this is, we had 1.4 watt-hours per liter on a 32 micron layer with over 90 volts per micron, and then it demonstrates the thermal stability between -50 and 125 C, and that's what makes it the X of the X5U. And then we did halt testing on that, and you saw that the insulation resistance, halt testing is like a highly accelerated life testing. They run it up at high voltage, high temperature, keep it at 1,000 volts for 100 hours, and watch what the insulation resistance does, and the insulation resistance plateaued nice straight, which indicates that it's going to have a long expected life. There's not a trend of failing, of reducing insulation resistance over time. So it produces it's a good solid product. And then we have the same comment. We've got this dielectric that's both non-toxic, takes higher voltage and breakdown voltage, and can really hold a lot of energy. And when we start comparing later, when the markets come out and we start comparing and contrasting, you can see how this one product can be picked out as you go up. We took the 32 micron layer up to 3,000 volts where it broke down, so you can pick it and say, okay, let's look at a 1,000 volt capacitor. What was the capacitance, and what was the insulation resistance? Okay, compare that to a 1,000 volt capacitor on the market, and those are the kind of things. What you want a 450 volt capacitor? Go back to 450 volts. Compare the K at 450 volts, the insulation resistance, and you can build your products to compare with other products on the market and see our advantage. And we're going to be illustrating that to you guys in upcoming releases. Should I take any questions now, or we'll do that later?
We'll do it after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Great. No, that's fine.
Thanks, Brian. The thing I did want to emphasize, of course, was that the reason that we had focused so heavily on the technical releases as we came out of this 10-month period of development was to very much build the strength of the technical base of the technology. It was very important for us to make sure that we were testing all the key elements and getting those certified so that as we step into the next phase, which is all related to market development, market comparison, that we're relying on very, very sound data. and that we don't have to, go back and invent anything at that point, that we can talk about exactly where we are today. And that's so important to understand. So as Brian mentioned, the next sets of information coming out is all going to be market driven. So you can see direct comparisons between incumbent existing technology and how our technology lines up against those. We're doing a lot of the work internally. We have a number of key consultants who are helping us with that analysis. So this isn't going to be an eStore only message. This is going to be very much a message driven by consultants who are active in the market. Again, a very important thing that our shareholders and other stakeholders have asked for, that they want to see independence when it comes to this analysis as well. So that it can be presented with as much weight as possible. So that's a critical takeaway. Gary, we'll get to the questions after. Yeah, just hold it, and I'll make sure we answer that for you. So the competitive advantages, and Brian has touched on many of these. The things that I do really want to highlight, though, and one of the things that was incredibly important to me when I first was introduced to this technology over a decade ago was the fact that the material utilized for it is barite, barium derivative materials. So this is an incredibly globally prevalent raw material. It's very, very low environmental impact to extract. It's very, very, very low cost compared to any of the other storage materials that are out there. Francois loves to sort of refer to it as mud, and it's sort of as cheap as mud, if you will. And it's, in fact, one of its main uses today is as a lubricant in oil drilling wells. So as we start to dismantle the oil industry, we'll have even more barium available. So keep that in mind as we expand our opportunities. I think the thing to note is on the competitors' side is you've got all of these failing mechanisms within existing incumbent technologies, and that's really important to keep your mind on. And as we go forward now, and we really start promoting the benefits of what we've got, we're going to be, addressing the failings of existing technology very, very strongly, and because the general population doesn't understand the level of toxicity that exists within existing storage devices and electrochemical devices, and it's a really important story to tell. And we will tell it in the context of us disrupting and differentiating from those very problematic existing technologies that are out there. I won't go through the list. Please feel free to read it. Most of you are familiar with all of these key issues. So we're positioning ourselves as a disruptive technology, and that's today. This isn't, 10 months from now or 10 years from now. We have again, over the last 10 months, really focused in on some key addressable markets that are extremely significant. And we will, as I've mentioned several times now, our disclosure over the coming weeks is going to be looking at very, very particular markets, very easy to understand what sectors we're addressing, very easy to line up our technology against incumbent technologies, and getting an understanding of what sort of disruption and market share potential we have based on the performance of our materials today. These are huge opportunities, and of course, we can't obviously address all of them immediately, but we have very clear lines into each of these sectors. I think the biggest and the most exciting sector for everybody ultimately is grid-related storage. Once you break the code in terms of high enough energy densities and high enough efficiencies for storage within the grid, and this is one thing that we are heavily focused on in the coming months in terms of technological development, we believe that the opportunity is endless. The grid efficiency issues globally are huge. Our ability to then tie into wind and solar and other renewables as as a key storage technology as it relates to those types of generation will be, again, endless opportunity, and we do remain very much focused on those types of markets. But there's a lot available today. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of very, very significant markets available today. So here's sort of three buckets of opportunity that again we'll be talking about in a lot of detail in the coming days and weeks, and we'll be describing again the opportunity lining up directly against existing incumbent technologies. The markets, as some of them are sound very esoteric. So if you're not in the if you're not in the storage or energy or electric business, things like decoupling and filtering and those sorts of things won't mean a lot to you. But the best illustration for the layperson is you've got about maybe 700 capacitors in your cell phone. Like they're ubiquitous. They are everywhere, and each of the they're all doing a job, and most of those jobs are related to handling energy for the little processors that are in your phone and so on. And there's a lot of issues around efficiency in those types of capacitors. There's a lot of issue around cost. There's a lot of issue around failure ultimately of those capacitors. And as Brian touched on, we've created specific dielectric mixes that would address that type of application directly. It's, again, a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, and we'll be talking about very clearly defining how that looks as we go forward, as we come out of this meeting into our next rounds of disclosure. There's also a huge electrochemical capacitor market that is extremely significant. There's big electrolytic capacitors that are between windmills and the grid that are prone to failure. They're very, very expensive. They're consumables within the renewable energy grid equipment set, and we can introduce to that type of application, which is growing at a massive rate year over year, devices that are they're permanent, essentially, something that they could amortize, the utilities could amortize over 30 or 50 years as opposed to 5 to 6 years. Much smaller footprint, absolutely non-toxic in terms of creation and, if necessary, disposal. But again, think of these as permanent. So disposal shouldn't be an issue. But of course, there's always failure in any technology, obviously. The good thing being that if there is disposal associated with what we've got, it's not an environment. There's no environmental impact in that regard. So here again, these are our targets coming in as we are going through licensing discussions and targeting licensee partners. These are the main focus of the types of companies that we're approaching and that we're talking to now. You've got to understand that the sector is so broad, and there are so many vertical applications and as a small company, we're choosing very, very carefully who we're targeting and in what verticals. We, of course, are working with and rely heavily on Dennis Ogby as our consultant. Dennis is very active with the company and is very helpful at this stage of development as we are now targeting and delineating these very, very competitive solutions that, again, are available from us today. So he's very, very helpful in that regard. In terms of the technology, this is an assurance that again, over the last 10 months, this quiet period, as Brian said, we were developing new methodologies, new processes, in some cases new materials that were being utilized and so on. We wanted to ensure that our portfolio was in good shape. We were quite deliberately, we were developing trade secrets that were directly applicable to the work that we were doing. We wanted to differentiate between what needed to be patented further versus what we would retain as a trade secret in terms of some of the processes that we're doing. But we've been very, very active just to ensure the protection of your assets. I mean, this of course, it all belongs to us, and it's critical that that it be protected, because ultimately the value, of course, is in the intellectual property that has been developed and the new work that we're doing now as well on an ongoing basis. I've touched on, of course, on the non-toxic nature. We will be stressing this more and more. This is such an important part of the story, and as you consider the scale of opportunity that exists out there, you need to keep in mind that if we're scaling to global, if we're satisfying global markets, we need to make sure that we've got an environmental story to support that type of a rollout. You do not see there are no electrochemical technologies out there today that talk about the non-environmental footprint that they have, or the green technology that exists in the context of their storage. They can't. I mean, we've got dramatic differentiators there, and we will be pushing, as I said, we'll be pushing that story because it's a fundamental part of why eStore as a company differentiates. We'll take a very significant thought leadership position in that regard as well, because if we're not protecting the environment as we develop these solutions, we just become a part of a much, much bigger problem, and of course that's not acceptable to us as a company. And one of the main basis points that we looked at originally when I was interested at the technology at the beginning was, what is the environmental impact of this? I didn't want to associate myself with something that was ultimately going to be detrimental to the environment globally. Brian thankfully touched on our development programs. Dr. Paul, as he mentioned, has been a tremendous asset to the organization. He's working with materials that, as of a year ago, 2 years ago, I won't say they didn't exist, because I guess everything on Earth exists, but they were not being utilized or synthesized into the type of work that we're now doing as a result of his knowledge base. Very, very exciting, and a very, very aggressive program going forward. He has a great team. We plan to add to that team in the coming months as well, just to make sure that we've got the bandwidth to continue that work. As Brian said, a lot of what we do is quite iterative. We have to go through multiple processes as we develop the technology. From a layperson's perspective, a good analogy that I use is a balloon, a round balloon, and as you squeeze it, different parts pop out, and you've got to fix those parts to keep the pressure, to keep increasing the pressure on the balloon. And we find that, of course, throughout our development process that will improve one characteristic dramatically, and then we'll see an effect in another aspect. So there's a lot of that iterative work to make sure that we've got the best and most robust product available. But it takes time, and we're taking the time, and we've got, again, as I said, an extraordinary team as it relates to problem solving and also advancement of the technology. So every day is a new advancement. The GLASS program is, again, of great interest. We've had Francois Delange has been helping us actively over the last 6 months or so, and he's been our real champion when it comes to some of the advanced sintering work that we're doing. It's very time consuming and very iterative. Brian pointed out that one of the samples we had some very, very good performance was number 344. That's a lot of work. You don't, you can't make 100 of these a day. So it's an extremely intense program with tremendous tremendous progress, and also operating performance out of the technology that, again, we are lining up against existing incumbent technology, and we can do some very, very intense comparison and differentiation from what's available today. So what's next? Of course, we're on a continual improvement basis with materials in both of the programs, and we will continue to certify and disclose that progress on an ongoing basis, as we have promised to do. And as Brian indicated, it takes time to go through a test cycle, but we've got some very, very key milestones that we're targeting, and we will be releasing in the coming months as well. The characterization specifically of what Brian talked about as the relaxer aspects of our dielectric are incredibly compelling. As Brian said, the knowledge base is pretty new science. But we have some performance characteristics that we'll be proving out, again, over the coming weeks and months, that will be extremely interesting in relation to, again, potential licensing opportunities and so on. And securing licensing, as I mentioned, Dennis is active. We've got a number of targets and discussions in the works, and we all know that a very, very significant component for the company will be to secure licensing, obviously. It brings in, of course, independent validation, of what we're doing, but it also gives us a lot more bench strength as we start to introduce the solutions on a commercial basis through our licensing partners. So that's a big thing. Again, you should be looking forward to again in the coming months as well. Huge focus for us. And I think that's the end of the update presentation. And we can take questions now, of course. Gary has a question, and we do have a microphone. Brian, why don't you stand up here too, and we can.
It seems that you have a superior product than everybody out there. Why aren't companies banging at your door to throw money at you and get licensing agreements going? Also, too, is when you come out with a press release, your stock runs up to 30, 40, 50 cents, and as soon as the press release is done, it's back down to 30 cents.
Sure.
Don't you have a plan to boost that capacity up to $1 or $2?
Yeah, absolutely. The key takeaway from that question is that we have been very deliberate through our last several phases of testing to set this technological base or foundation for the technology. The next set of releases that will be going out are all going to be market specific. So these are the kinds of to your question. These are the types of information that an analyst will require to look at the technology, to value the company based on the markets that are addressable. But we needed to ensure that we had all of the technological work done in order to support those statements. So those are the statements that are going to be coming forward in the near future. We're, again, very, very market specific. And also, as part of that, the communication strategy will be going to very specific analysts in these markets that we're addressing in those reports, talking to them about the scale of opportunity that exists, allowing them to do analysis based on these very significant markets that we'll be identifying. It's our next set of disclosure information. No. Again, this is over the next couple of months. Is our primary objective is to get to the right analysts in those very, very specific markets. We'll be doing a lot of that work with Spark. We have other consultants who are tied heavily into those specific vertical industries that we're talking about as well. So our intention is to get the message to those individuals and groups as quickly as we can, get new coverage on the stock based on, again, top-down analysis of what those potential markets are worth, and that again that should reflect favorably, and we hope to get some very meaningful coverage out of that work.
And hopefully some interest. I mean, not just the coverage for the raised stock price, but hopefully some interest in the
on the licensing side.
We had to have the technical basis for the stakeholders that are currently in the space to see that they are outclassed, if you will, or outperformance anyway. And so it's going to need to drive them to our door. We need to have this basic technical information out there so they can see that we're not just saying it, that we actually have it in hand.
Yeah.
Good morning, Ian, Brian. As an accountant who likes technology, but to whom a relaxer means a drink after work, I'm neither a scientist nor an engineer, but I wanted to be able to make sure I understand that. Is it fair to say that the company's technology platform is basically stable so that it can be used to create products to address the specific markets and verticals that you're going to be attacking? Obviously, the products would be somewhat different, but the technology underlying it is stable enough to do that, because that's a very significant thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the technology, as Ian says, we have technology in hand today. Now, we still have aspirational technology to be that traction drive battery and that, replace all lithium-ion batteries in every battery in the world, but we don't have that in hand today. But we do have competitive products that can beat current markets for billion-dollar markets. And people who are currently doing those things need to take notice, because somebody is going to come up and be the first one to grab this technology and bring it to the market. And so creating that kind of drive for the market space, that kind of desire in those people and those stakeholders currently to not be outplaced by the new technology should get the people coming to our door. And that's why we had to lay out the actual, not just the polymer, but we had to go to the glass program to show what the technology is truly capable of, to dispel the skepticism in that community. And I think these last ones should have dispelled that skepticism now, and we believe we should, and our consultants believe we should get some interest.
Very powerful statement. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Ian, I won't ask the same question I asked last year. It was already asked. But more seriously, one of the things I've observed in an unrelated business, but it's incumbents don't like disruptive technology. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the example you used of the power factor capacitors, for example, which are high voltage, they wear out after a couple of years, and they need to be replaced. So if you're the manufacturer of that's your business, and that's your business model, is to go out and, utility X, it's time for these guys need to be replaced. So our next shipment is planned to be leaving the dock to your same purchase order as 2 years ago, guys. Just sign here. That's their business model. You're coming up with something which is extremely disruptive to that business model. Forget about the technology, but their business model is being disrupted.
Sure.
So you can have the greatest technology in the world, but convincing them to change their business model, to me, is a much bigger hurdle than actually commercializing the technology. Because we see iPhones being updated every year. Yeah, it's smaller stuff and new screens for ICs and a bunch of other things. But overcoming that resistance to significant change to a business model, a production method, I'm sure you've had discussions like this with others.
Sure,
is that part of your rollout strategy?
Yes, and it's very much part of the licensing discussions and who we would target for specific licensing in a particular sector. If you look at power factor correction, just as an example, you'll have 4 or 5 major players, and they share market share reasonably evenly. So if you're introducing to one of them a product that could allow them to disrupt, to take a 50% market share or a 70% market share, they're going to look at that very, very seriously. I mean, if they can compete that dramatically with their competitors head on. The other thing is that all of these markets are, for the most part, are emerging. So they're growing dramatically as well. So the idea that you've got a finite value proposition because revenues aren't growing in those sectors, they're static, isn't the case. I mean, we're looking at 20% compound growth yearly in some of these markets. Like, these are massively growing markets, and grid implementation obviously is grid rollouts and renewable rollouts are happening at massive scales globally. So it needs disruption because when you start looking from an accounting perspective, when you look at amortizing some of this equipment for 2 or 3 years, when you could be amortizing it as part of a 30 or 40-year value proposition, then it makes a tremendous amount of sense. So those markets need disrupting. They simply do. There hasn't been enough dramatic disruption in dielectrics over the last 20 years. It just hasn't happened. So they're looking for it. Trust me, they want to know that there are new ways of doing things that are much more efficient and will give them a lot more market advantage.
Another comment that we always talk about how it's smaller, so it's less footprint, less raw materials. It's going to be cheaper to manufacture. Right? But if you're in that space and you're doing replacements every years, you can decide, okay, this is going to be a 15-year, 30-year product. How many replacement cycles we're going to do then, and price it just marginally under that. Okay, and say, okay, now we're now, and you're counting on greed to get those people in because they're going to go. If one of my competitors decides to do this and start selling a product that lasts 4 times as long as we do for 30% less than buying four cycles of our product, they're going to take the market. And so you're counting on that kind of, once the realization of the technology gets to those folks, you're counting on that their greed to be the disruptor there. Going, we can produce this product for less than the cost of a current 1 cycle, and it'll last 5 cycles, and we can market it for the price of 3 cycles, and and so that's where I think the value is for those kind of people who are currently in a really nice replacement market. They could see that they could be the only one with the one that has the longer.
Someone has to blink first, though.
Of course.
Agreed.
That's and I'm sure you're coming up with innovative.
So we're staring a lot now. We're doing lots of staring, waiting for blinks. Yeah. Mike?
One other comment. It's not just a case of static market incumbents. These are growing markets that are attracting multinational players who want to get into the market, and not an opportunity for a new market entrant to bring a new technology would allow them to disrupt the market as much as the technology has capacity to.
Right.
So it's when we're looking at licensing opportunities, that's going to be a big consideration. Is this something that someone's going to vary because they want to retain their existing model, or is this the kind of partner that is interested in making their mark and once they have that toehold, taking over as much market share as possible?
Yeah. So the greenfield as opposed to the existing. I'm sure you've considered that as part of the approach.
And interestingly, just because this is such a broad and segmented, the industries are so broad and segmented, you'll have some players who are very dominant in one area who have no offering in another area and are very interested in breaking into those markets. So to Mike's point, you may see a new player with a very competitive advantage taking a crack at it.
So I guess we'll take your words and consider them and see what happens in the coming weeks and months.
And there you go. Yes, exactly.
So will we all.
Based on your explanation of the rollout, it kind of implies that you're going to have a prototype in order to show the individual companies that Spark will be addressing and Dennis Zogby will be addressing. I would like to make a suggestion that we also consider large end users and bypass both of these large manufacturing sectors where it's clear that they are now threatened that they're no longer in control of that market, that one of our options could easily be we get funding and take the long road and do the manufacturing ourselves, and they're out the door.
I'll comment. When we were first talking about power factor correction when we were working on epoxy, one of the places I was looking at, I met the CFO of an inductor pipe bending company in Houston that makes pipes for the space industry and oil industry, and they pay $200,000 a month in fees because they refuse to put in power factor correction because they've calculated out it would be too expensive. They'd rather pay the $200,000 a month in fees from their utility company for having a bad power factor than pay to do the cyclic replacement, the engineering, the install for power factor correction. They've made this decision. And when I mentioned to him something like this, his ears perked right up, because if they don't have to replace, the big thing for them was the replacement, the ongoing constant replacement, and the engineering. It needs to be engineered every time you replace it. And so he was very interested in that capability. So the end users could certainly do that, but you still have to put a manufacturer. We're not going to be the capacitor manufacturer. But if an end user with sufficient capital, let's say, maybe not this one isolated pipe bending company, but if you were a larger company that needs power factor correction, maybe you're run data centers. Maybe you're a Facebook or a Google, and you run these huge data centers which consume a huge amount of the grid right now. You might be really interested in getting that power factor, in branching out and starting a little capacitor company to supply yourself.
Well, precisely, and that's an area where we could use our own production facility as well as contract out other facilities to supply the powders and the process.
Right.
Oh, we certainly would, yeah.
And that adds, to me, I think that would add a huge amount of credibility, to each one of those marketplaces.
Well, we'll take whoever comes, I think, is the, if one of those guys comes and wants to set up a shop, we'll take him.
We'll certainly entertain it. Yeah, no, and absolutely contract manufacturing is something that could happen if we have a much clearer and direct line to the end user, as opposed to, the manufacturing middle. There are ways of structuring deals that could look to contract manufacturing specifically. I mean, some of the requirements, as Brian was hinting to. I mean, if you look at Google with data centers globally and massive grid demand, the manufacturing side of it could be very much part of that discussion and negotiation for sure. And contract manufacturing is not out of the question. Scalability of what we've got in Cedar Park is also an important point to make. I mean, as everyone knows, and everyone knows from Dick Weir and Carl Nelson's original plan for scaling the material production, what's there is fully scalable. I mean, the idea is that you just have to add more throughput, more capacity, and you can scale up that production facility that exists in Cedar Park. And that's really important. And certainly as we're talking to licensing partners, that becomes a very important part of the discussion, because they're going to want to know, to the previous question, is this disrupting their entire supply chain, or is there a very elegant and easy way to adopt the way that we create our dielectric, as an example?
And we have some existing inventory in the drums that might be utilized.
Well, I mean, the capability in Cedar Park is, of course, limited because it was never designed as a full-scale production facility. It is scalable in its current configuration, but we can certainly, and we are producing materials, volumes of materials now for different types of experiments that we're doing and different types of production, MLCC production capabilities and those sorts of things. So we're certainly utilizing our throughput in Cedar Park right now, maximizing it.
Thank you. Keith Pope here. I've been a shareholder I just looked back at my first buy. It was July 2008. So I was surprised. I thought it was 2009. But neither here nor there. It's been a long time. So I got two parts to my question. The first one is, and it's a bit of a rewind, and it's probably just to connect the dots for me, maybe some others. So we had the work that Dennis was doing pre Ryan coming in,
yes.
pre Dr. Paul coming in.
Correct.
And we were at the point there where you were actually producing samples, giving out samples, testing the market to see if you can get some interest from licensees to take what was already proven to be, you felt, we all felt, was low-hanging fruit. Then that, I just want to try to bridge between what happened there versus what we're doing now, which, forgetting about the technology, but it seems to me we're kind of going back over that same ground again with better material, I guess, because of the poly and so on. What happened to those samples? What happened to those potential licensees?
So lots of feedback. We decided at that point that there were certain things that we needed to improve, and there were aspects of the development of the technology, specifically on the glass side, that were essential. That was essential work to do to create as strong a technological base as we could in that ensuing period. We wanted to take the time to go back to the materials, to go back to our processes, to really take the feedback we were getting and say, these are the things that we need to improve, and we need to improve them significantly to really clearly differentiate. And that's what we've done. So this last 10-month period was all about, raising the bar on every aspect of performance, and also introducing some new performance characteristics that weren't on the table a year ago. So it was really, development time, research time, and then obviously the certification process we've been going through for the last several months.
That was kind of like pivoting back into ED, energy density, as being more of a focus versus power correction, power factor.
Right.
Trying to maximize that and see where that could...
Exactly.
So I assume those licensees are still that stable that that has been a little bit cultivated, are still
and expanding.
Because
the more performance characteristics and the broader characteristics that we can demonstrate, the audience becomes that much broader as well. And there are different players, as I've mentioned. They're very, very distinct players in these distinct markets, and they're different. In many cases.
Let me add that the polymer product, like with the epoxy we had before that we were shopping around, is a hybridized product. It is the CMBT embedded in the polymer, and it's very hard for them to see what the actual nature of the CMBT is, which is really what we're selling, right? So by going back to the basics, if you will, and producing more pure, over 90% CMBT parts that are going to behave like the CMBT, and less masking by the polymer, that's going to allow and allows us to see really what the value is in the technology. It's going to allow those partners, potential partners, to really see what they're buying, as opposed to, okay, this is performing okay, but you're selling me the powder, and I want to see the powder, right?
What's it do?
Right, and we wouldn't let them take our stuff apart before. We don't want them to take our IP protection, which is another reason why we're not just going to hand over our powder, but we're going to do third-party testing by reputable people that those, and one of the reasons we went to MRA, I don't know if you remember that, is our consultant said, you're using Intertek, which is a globally known company, but it's not known in the capacitor industry. The capacitor industry knows MRA labs, and they are well known in the capacitor industry, so when they say something in the capacitor industry, and they say it performs this way, that has those people's ears perking up a lot more. And again, we wanted to show all the attributes that we've enhanced and delivered on in the last 12 months.
And I think Dennis also, back in the day when he was brought on board, talked about comparing eStore's plant and facility to some of the powder production done at MRA. Is that correct?
Yeah, MRA or any other manufacturer.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Okay, now we can fast forward a little bit. So we're moving in the direction you're going in. Mm-hmm. Most recently, you spoke about the next big hurdle, or the next best thing for us to get to, is double-digit ED. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be? I guess I'm going to ask the question: is that 6 months, a year, weeks away, months away? Where are you in that? Is that going to be part of the next rollout?
It is part of our daily daily work is advancing energy density. I use the balloon analogy because as you improve certain things, you have to fix other things, and that's part of the sequence of development. It remains our target. It remains our objective. If you look at what we achieved in the last 10 months in terms of advancement, we're incredibly pleased with our control over processes now and our knowledge of the materials that we're working with in ways that we didn't have before. So without giving a time frame, it is of course a huge priority for us. However, as soon as we can. But however, again, the big takeaway from this meeting should be there are billions and billions of dollars of opportunity today that is addressable by what we have today. And that's, again, what we need to look at, both sides of the equation. We want to build shareholder value based on what we've got. We don't want to sit here always with an if come and run out of runway, run out of whatever. That's not obviously a responsible way of running it, and we've decided very, very clearly that our mandate now is to put very significant value on what we have today and keep obviously focused on improvement because it's all part of the same continuum. It's the same material. It's, as Brian pointed out very clearly, the CMBT is the CMBT, and that is the magic material that exists at the heart of all of the technology that we're developing. And we will continue, of course, to push that as far as we can.
Thank you.
How many interested parties are you talking to right now?
I can't get specific in numbers. We've got that's specific. I can't. We have a number of interested parties that we're talking to. No, I'm not going to answer that, Gary. I'm not going to answer that. Sorry.
Safe to say more than one.
Yes, it would be safe to say more than one. Yes, that's safe.
Just a quick question regarding finances. I don't know if this is a question for you, Ian, or Kevin. Mm-hmm. Just a little off topic from the technology part, but I was just thinking about it for the last little while, the last few years. I haven't got a clear answer on. It seems like it'd be in the best interest of eStore to have eStore Inc. and Corporation as one entity.
Yes.
As opposed to just being content with 71.3% of the company, for which just we get diluted every time we do a financing. I'm wondering if that's ongoing discussions, part one, and part two would be the eStore Inc. people. How is that accounting done for them in regards to the financing that is diluting for us? Is that clear?
It's a very clear question. Do you want to take it, Kevin? Do you want to talk about? I mean, the discussions on what we call the consolidation are ongoing, and certainly part of our plan. So. Yes, it's important for us as well. I mean, just to keep to simplify the structure of the company is definitely an objective.
For the licensees too.
Well, for licensee, probably not as much on the licensee side of the equation, but certainly potential acquisition. It would be a much bigger issue. But at this point, we do have a program, a working group. On it, and we intend to achieve that.
And the accounting part, any accountability? I think it's just important to note that any monies that have been advanced down to the U.S. for operating purposes have done so in the form of a loan. Now, you wouldn't see that as it gets consolidated up in public statements, but all the monies are accounted for, and all the monies we put in are in a form of a loan. And in exchange for that, we do have, as shareholders of the parent, general call over the assets of our, for lack of a better term, our subsidiary in the U.S.
Okay, that's great.
So that is our protection.
That's my question. If they want to see Dick and the team of guys get a free ride on our backs, that's all.
Yeah. No. I'll just repeat that just in case it wasn't heard on the webcast. But yeah, all the money all the operational cash that goes to Inc. to the subsidiary is in the form of a loan. And we have call on the IP, and the parent company has call on the IP and call on the loan.
Hi. So we had a little bit of difficulty, and it still seems we are getting the 800,000. And I'm just wondering, when are we actually going to make an honest dollar here?
An honest dollar? Well, I think the people who are investing in the private placement would would feel that their investments are honest dollars. But in terms of revenue, as we've talked about, I mean, we've talked about the potential sources of revenue for the company, and clearly the first would be in the form of licensing and royalty. And those are, again, to Gary's question, those are discussions that are active now. Our marketing rollout in the coming weeks is going to be all focused on licensing and getting those relationships. Well, the coming weeks. I mean, you're asking what time frame. Like the next disclosure that's coming out of the company is all market related. And again, I'll repeat myself, but the reason we've done all of this technical release over the last several months is to prepare and position ourselves for the marketing releases.
Follow up just on the environmental. We talked about barium titanate. Does the environmental benignness also consider the manufacturing of the CMBT? That would be something that I think you might want to consider.
Yes.
Expounding?
Right. Well, it's an aqueous process. It's about over 99% recoverable. So there's in terms of waste, there's virtually no waste. In Texas, we could buy green energy to run the factories. I mean, you could make it as benign as you want. In terms of toxic reactants and dopants and things like that, no, we're working with a very clean slate.
I expect it might be useful to include that for the ultra greenies who might be out there.
Of course, and I mean, as part of the analysis of the CMBT as it relates to those discussions, yeah, I mean, the formulas and everything else are part of that. The other
point is, I think there may be some webcast questions that have come in. Is that the case?
We don't have any as of right now, okay. But our intention is to continuously be answering questions.
Yeah.
Over the next little while.
All right.
That was just a comment I had read that someone was looking for some webcast questions, so I assumed there were some coming in, but I guess not.
We are receiving questions, okay. But I believe our intention is to do some.
Yeah, we'll consolidate the questions and,
so the
make sure they go on.
questions will be answered not in a live form, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, once we're posting the AGM, we'll make sure that we've got the Q&A section up on those questions. To hear them now, I'm not. Who's looking at them?
Do we have any coming in from
Sure.
inquiries? So we haven't received any questions coming in from inquiries. If they are being posted somewhere on the webcast, we don't presently have that open right now. But as always, inquiries at eStoreCorp.com. We do our best to answer everyone.
So we'll make sure that any incoming inquiries are answered, for sure, and posted in a timely way. Good. All right. Are there any other questions before? Oh, there's one.
Where do you see eStore a year from now?
A year from now?
Do you expect to have multiple licensees by then?
That is definitely our objective. Yeah, multiple licensees. We want to get really good coverage of the story. We want to increase the profile dramatically globally. We haven't talked a lot about Spark in this meeting, but one of the reasons we brought them on as our agency of record is their reach and their particular knowledge in terms of our sector and getting to the right people, be it on the analyst side or be it on the journalist side, and thought leadership in those in the areas that we're addressing. So you should be looking for a lot higher profile for the company. I mean, it's been, as you all know, it's been a very quiet year in terms because we've been really very much heads down on the technology. But now we'll be much more vocal and much more public in terms of spreading the word. We have one more question. Time for one more question.
There you go. Given the disruptive nature of the technology and the political climate in the States, is there any problem with developing partners from outside of the States in terms of developing or buying into silos? And
Well, there shouldn't be. I mean, our intellectual property is protected in global markets. So in terms of licensing and the comfort of a licensee who is outside of the United States, that shouldn't present an issue. No,
You
we're
worry
not.
about ITAR or something?
yeah, something of that nature.
I don't. I've dealt with a lot with ITAR at NASA, and I don't believe any of our technology would fall in that restriction.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you, everyone, for participating online as well. And if you were trying to submit questions, please rest assured that we will get to them, and we'll make sure that they are answered quickly and as the webcast is put onto our website. So thanks again. Until next year.